What's up, Kiplings? Welcome back to the little YouTube. I just, well, not just, but it's been a day since the Elden Ring Nightreign beta network test has ended, and I wanted to get my thoughts on it because I actually was someone who managed to get in. I did see a couple of people didn't. I saw a lot of people also didn't, so it wasn't a huge thing. But I played it for about 4 hours. I started the first network session because it was around the time I was able to do it. And of course, just like most people, I didn't get into any matches. I just kind of was stuck around the lobby. So I just kind of wandered around. But then the second and the third, well, actually second one that came around 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. my time, I got in, played a couple matches. For the first match, I got almost straight to the end. Or I did get to the end. I didn't beat the boss. And then originally that was going to be my last play session, but I actually landed the last one as well. So I played the last play session as well for a little bit. And I just want to get my thoughts on Nightreign because I have played Elden Ring. I have not beaten Elden Ring, unfortunately, because a lot of stuff happened around the time I started playing Elden Ring. So I quit it for a minute, and then I came back to it, and then some more stuff happened, so I quit it again. For my live stream community, I actually purchased a copy of Elden Ring for my PS5 and not my Xbox One, so expect, Elden Ring coming back soon, maybe from the very beginning, because I just want to play it on a better frame rate, I guess. I guess, yeah, Elden Ring is going to be coming back soon. But for Nightreign, I was a little skeptical with the idea of multiplayer Elden Ring, because I don't know how it didn't make sense to me at first, but saying now after playing about 4 hours of the actual network test, I very much enjoyed it. Now, there's going to be a lot of the Dark Souls communities about to bastardize me for what I'm about to say, but I actually enjoyed that they simplified a lot of things. And I'm not saying that because I didn't get into these systems when I played Elden Ring the first time. I had to, because it was a very sudden change for any kind of action game that I actually have ever played. But I like the simplification because there's less to think about and more to think about when it comes to what your actions are going to be when you're in a match. Of course, when someone leaves your match, because it happened a lot throughout the beta, I had a lot of disconnects with people. Now, to be fair, a lot of them were, because I think it actually specifies if they disconnect or if they're leaving. I have a lot of them that said was left the match rather than disconnected the match. I had one instance where, 2 people disconnected and it was like, okay, then I'll just disconnect. But unfortunately, there was no penalty for disconnecting in the network test at the moment. They did specify that there will be a penalty for disconnecting or leaving in the full release. So luckily there is some punishment for doing so. Hopefully it's a punishment that's good enough for people to not want to disconnect even if they're already doing horribly. Because if you're doing horribly by day 1 and you manage to pull together, you have a really good chance of picking yourself back up in day 2. At least for this network test, because the network test was one specific boss that we had to counter, and it was a 2-day system with the 3-day being the actual boss encounter. Now, I don't know if that's going to be like that for the next couple bosses that obviously will release with the full release. Hopefully some of them are a bit longer, and so you actually have more time to get stronger, because I feel like as those levels go, they're obviously going to get harder and harder, and you're going to need stronger and stronger gear, stronger and stronger levels. And I assume, based on some certain parts, you're not always going to start at level 1. Maybe you'll start level 5, something. You'll get a better kickstart, because there's going to be bosses that are obviously going to need a lot more levels than what you can have, but just based off the first session. I do think, though, that the section we did get to play in the beta test is the first section of the actual game itself, just because of the way how easy it was for the most part. I get that everything was toned down dramatically to fit the 3-player online kind of time-based day system, and it works for the most part. I didn't have any lag issues or anything. I did have frame drops while loading and stuff, but I don't think there was any big issues on my end. So luckily I had a good smooth experience. A lot of the bosses were tough, but not really difficult in any fashion. Most of them, if I brute forced it, I died, but Majority of the time I was just fine, and I had my teammates next to me. And I think this is one thing that also that nobody really bothers talking about it much, I think, is that this game is very, very team oriented. I don't know how they're going to balance it for solo play, because solo play, I think they're probably going to give you a lot more time to run around, and they're probably going to give you lower some of the boss's health damage or something, because playing this solo, especially when two players disconnect, and two players disconnected for me, and I tried to see what it would be like if I played it solo, and I think they did in the background adjust things for how many players are in the server, because I played even with the duo and it got easier and easier, but with solo, they had left right before the day had ended. So I had to go straight to the boss instead of doing more little small grinding to get stuff. So I was already under-leveled and underprepared. And once I got to that, yeah, there's an obvious, like, you need to be have some preparation for these bosses, because I couldn't even stand a chance. It took me like 5 minutes just to get halfway, and then he killed me, and then that was it. So there's definitely some sort of, like, you need to have time and you have prepared. So there is a minimum sort of requirement when you're playing. You can't just kind of run around willy-nilly grinding small enemies and hope that you'll be okay. You really do need to go for the bosses and stuff. Now luckily there's a bunch of them scattered around, and there's even ones that you might see as like basic enemies in Elden Ring become bosses. And so there's those. They all give you some decent loot. I don't think there was one of them that I was like, I'm not gonna take this item. I think most of them I took, because the way I like the way they do this. When you beat a boss, you don't just get the boss's weapon or an item or just a great ton of runes. Even though you do get a ton of runes as well. You get a selection of 3 weapons or buffs or items to pick from that are generally way better than anything you're gonna find in a chest littered around the world. So you get one of those, and rarely, the entire time playing, I only got one legendary weapon. It was the, I think it was called the Hand of Mikola. I think that's right. I don't know. I never got to that point in Elden Ring, so I don't even know if that's a weapon you can get in Elden Ring. I think most of these weapons you can get in Elden Ring. I think there's very few of them that are actually exclusive to Nightreign. But I assure you there's probably going to be a couple items and weapons exclusive to Nightreign. But there's a simplification of weapons as well, with the fact that any class can wield any weapon. I think that's, you know, a cool thing, because it does help when you're playing like Recluse, who is a magic based build of character, and you only have magic weapons, and so you're trying to help your friends get up, because the way you die in this game is when you get use all your health, you go into like a down but not out stage. And then depending if you're in a boss fight, that counter doesn't go down, but if you're in main combat, you have a counter as well that goes down until you actually just die and then spawn at another site of grace. Where in boss fights, you have like a certain, you don't have a timer, so you stay there for the entire time until someone smacks you enough to get you back up. But with Recluse, if she runs out of magic and she doesn't finish her gauge, you just have to wait forever to gain her magic back, because there's no FP flash. I think that's a big actual thing that they either should change or have some better way of circumnavigating it, is FP flash just don't exist in this, especially for the Recluse build. I feel like they should give you at least like 1 or 2 FP flash for the Recluse build. And then maybe have the ability to gain more with gaining more flash charges as you run around. And if any word of advice, if you didn't play, or if you're going to play, or you did play but didn't notice, first thing you should always do is go into a church, get a flash charges. Those are very beneficial at the very beginning of the game, and they carry over for the rest of the game. So, well, rest of the match, sorry. But you need to do that immediately. That's me and all my teams I did. Whenever I started, I immediately just looked for the closest church where we spawned and then just run to it. I pinged it so everybody knew I was going there. That's the other thing too. There's no like form of communication really besides pinging. So there's no voice chat. There's no. Well, there's supposed to be emotes, and I saw people emoting. I think they might have been on PC, because as far as the control buttons go on the control settings, and every button I could push with my controller, there was no way of emoting on controller at the moment. So I don't know if that was deactivated or was disabled or something, or they just forgot to implement it or anyway. Because I know you could emote in Elden Ring, but the menu system doesn't work the same way as Elden Ring, so it's hard to actually emote on controller. Um, I don't think they actually have emotes for controllers at the moment. I'm definitely assuming they're going to bring some because it is a form of communication that they're going to need at some point. But at the moment, there was nothing. So that was funny, you know, seeing a random player emote, we're like, what the hell? And we can't emote at all. Um, yeah, there's a lack of communication. So pinging was really your only choice when it came to communicating at least where you're gonna go, what you're doing. So I would ping the nearby church. Everybody would eventually. Well, there was one person that always like pinged it because like, oh, we get what you're going for, and we always go for it. But it was always kind of like even with my teammates that I didn't ping, we all kind of had the same idea of just running to the church first. Now there's always, depending on where you spawn, there was a boss next to one, and or there was generally bosses around them, but there was never one in the church, so you can just run to it and ignore the bosses, get one all the time. I try to do the bosses that I always found by the church because, especially early on, it's a really great start. I only had one team where we actually the two teams that I managed to make it to the end, sorry, are the only teams that we actually did the boss at the very beginning, next to the flask, and then kept going. Because those bosses, and I think this is just generally a great strategy, doing those somewhat harder but really good early on bosses really catapults your gameplay from there to win, because it's considering how long it takes to kill that boss compared to getting to another boss and do other stuff. It's considerably shorter to do that boss at that moment to get that jump leap, to then jump to where you are at the end game. By the time my first playthrough and my first made it to the final boss, we did the same thing. We killed a dragon at the big dragon right outside one of the churches, and we got a huge leap. And then we went and did some other things. And we went to other areas that had specific affinity-based weapons. Killed those bosses, got some stuff, and then we went to the first boss, and it was a cakewalk. I didn't even get knocked down once. And then day two, not a similar thing, but we definitely took our own time kind of running around doing our own thing, which was nice. I think it's cool that you, in the beginning, you definitely need to work as a team, but if you're set up really well, you can kind of do your own thing and kind of, you know, get around doing stuff on your own. And then at the same time, if there's a partner nearby, you can go help them. I did that a lot, where I didn't really, because it was my first playthrough, I didn't even know exactly what I was supposed to do. So I was kind of doing my own thing, but then kind of running around, helping my partners out because they were nearby. So it was a really fun time, and because I was able to do that, we made it to day two. We did day three, and we got halfway through the boss, but we didn't make it. And unfortunately, I can say I never beat the boss in this beta, unfortunately. But you know, when the game comes out, because the game is only $40, I might do a stream on it or something. I do think the bosses are definitely significantly harder. Certain bosses, at least, are significantly harder here because the game is a much more fast-paced game. Even the sprint speed is dramatically increased. Your sprint speed is basically the speed of running on a horse, or running on so you, for some reason, are just really fast. It feels great, obviously, because I love the speed of the horse, so I love the fact that you can run really fast in this game. But the game is a very fast-paced game, so a lot of bosses are tuned up in speed. Margit specifically, I don't know if it is true. I feel like it is for me personally. I feel like Margit being a random encounter that can pretty much spawn at any time, and being hella tuned up in speed is a very deadly combo, because I haven't managed to find the 4 times I managed to fight Margit, either on my own or randomly finding it as someone else was fighting it. We could not get more than halfway before they killed us, because Margit is just too fast for a lot of the classes, except for Duchess. Duchess was the only one that could kind of keep their pace with Margit. Wilder, which is the class I played the entire time, was not well suited for Margit. He could take a chunk of damage and even survive some instant kills, but he just like too fast. Which is, I guess, in some case fair, but not fair. because Margit is a like big boss in Elden Ring. So it just, when you translate that to Elden Ring Nightreign, which already is kind of balanced weirdly, it doesn't really work too well. I think Margit is like the one boss that is just generally like a bore to fight, because you're basically not going to win for the most part. But other bosses were fine. There was one instance where Margit appeared while in the middle of a day-end boss, and we lost because Margit was just rapid dashing everywhere and slicing everybody to pieces, so he couldn't even focus on the main boss we're supposed to be fighting. I think that was one of my big issues with Margit. It wasn't even that I couldn't beat it, but it was just that we had a moment where all we could do was try to defend ourselves against Margit while trying to do another boss and just getting absolutely cataclysmed by him, because they were just, the Margit was too fast and the one did too much damage, and it was just, we couldn't do anything about it. And we got killed like within 30 seconds. But there's a lot about Elden Ring Nightreign. There's not much exploration as well. The exploration has been kind of toned down because it's just a small section of a map, which is kind of like a hodgepodge of different parts of Elden Ring already put together. I definitely went down a cave system and I was like, oh, this seems familiar. I remember this cave from a different part of like Limgrave, and it was pretty much one-on-one, but it almost feels weird because where you're at is Limgrave. It's a whole different new area to begin with, but it's all kind of a couple of different sections of Elden Ring put together, which I think was cool. It's a good way to reuse assets and stuff, and it feels unique, and there's a good way to traverse. There's no like items to increase a lot of things. I think one thing I definitely don't like is the way items work. You can only hold to 4. I think depending on your class, you can hold to more in with the other characters, or I think with later characters that's supposed to be added after when the game releases. Because we have 4 starter characters here, but there's obviously going to be more. They've said so. There's going to be more release, and there's going to be more with DLC as well. So I'm expecting there to be a character class that's kind of all based on items as well. But you can only have 4 as Wilder at least. And smithing stones count as 1, which I guess makes sense because smithing stones in concept are strong. The only thing is that most of the smithing stones you get just aren't enough to fix the weapons that really matter, the ones that you're probably primarily using. At least for me, I had a lot of good weapons and I had a lot of good smithing stones, but none of them were the exact level I needed to upgrade my weapons. So I never actually upgraded any weapons with a smithing stone, even though I had a ton of them. So I found smithing stones kind of pointless in some fashion for me. I think honestly, especially because you can't buy all of them at the store, dude. I feel like you should at least buy all of them just within your dramatically increasing amount of runes. So that it warrants not just having to randomly discover them in item boxes, which are even hard to get anyway. Well, not hard to get, but the chances of getting one within an item box is really rare because items usually give you a ton of different items, but they usually primarily give you offensive items, not upgrade items. I think I only got like maybe 2 smithing stones in all of the item boxes I broke open. They're definitely a little more common with the chests, but even then, you're still, it's still not as common. But I feel like that can be tuned to be better, make it a little more easier to acquire. Not too easy, right? Because like you get runes really easily in this, and you get a lot of runes really easily. So I definitely think there should be a dramatic increase in runes, because you can't buy the first smithing stone. You can buy the base smithing stone from the guys. But like you can't buy smithing stone 1, you can't buy smithing stone 2. So I feel like it'd be great if you could buy those as well, because as far as I'm aware, that's the only 2 you can go up to. It'd be great if you can buy those 2, and they just have like huge increases, so that it's hard to actually buy them in any fashion, let alone if you even can by the end of a day or at the end of a play session, regardless. That would be nice because it just feels more warranted. I think the leveling system's great, that everything is kind of done for you. I like that, with every level, your health, your FP, and your stamina all get bigger regardless of, in Elden Ring where you pick your specific setup for your points to actually level up in. I like that everything just kind of leveled up all at once, and then your strength and everything as well, so just leveled up in general. Because it made it easier for me not to think about what I wanted to level up in and just hit the button when I needed to. Because you definitely need to level up quite a bit. I was level 10 on my first attempt at the final boss, and I got my ass handed to me. And then towards the second attempt on the final boss, I managed to do pretty good. We got, I think, like 25% before he killed us. But I was actually less level. I was level 7 at that point. So depending on also how you get your setup, it can help out. What do they call it? Armament skills are still level based, and luckily their levels have been turned down, obviously, so it's easier to acquire those skills within a play session. Most of them are about 9, some of them are 12. I had never got an issue with 1-7 because generally 7 was like the minimum I would ever get. So most of the time I was able to use most of my armament skills. But because I was using Wilder, a lot of them took magic too, which means I didn't get to use them very often. So returning to a Site of Grace was very necessary to actually even use most of my armament skills. Luckily, Sites of Grace work slightly differently in Nightreign than they do in Elden Ring. In Elden Ring, you have to interact with them to get your blast backs and everything. Where here, all you gotta do is just get close to them, and it will give you all your health, your flasks, your stamina, everything back. And then you have to interact with them to level up. And luckily, interacting with them and leveling up is like the only thing you can do with them, just like kind of Elden Ring, where you kind of can only level up, but you have little different options you can do here and there. Even though the button only says level up. Here, it's exclusively only leveling up, and when you level up, it's instantaneous. There's nothing crazy about it. You don't pick anything, you just level up, and that's it. So it's streamlined, and I kind of like that because it makes the Sites of Grace very important still, but also, you know, not something you need to worry too much about. You know, if you find one, great, you need it because you're going to need all that stuff it gives you back. And if you don't find one, or if you do find one and you have runes, it's like, oh, great, I can level up now too. So it kind of works. It kind of works really well. The map design is a little confusing at first because it's not. I don't think it's really. I might have missed it, but in the basic info, it doesn't explain that you can kind of sort of climb up walls slightly. It's not technically climbing. When you run up to a wall and jump at it, if you push the jump button again, you can kind of bounce off it and get more high on the wall, and you can potentially climb. Your character automatically mantle on ledges, so you can climb things essentially. And there's a lot of walls that are designed around cliffs that are for climbing. There's also sections of cliffs that, just like the horse, will catapult you over the cliff, you know, and then some after too. So there's a lot of different ways to get around. There's a weird bird hawk thing. I don't know exactly what it's called. You can find those little trees, interact them, and you can fly across certain sections. Now, I thought it would be like sort of like a Breath of the Wild sort of, where when you use it, you can go in any direction. You are heavily steered in a specific direction of a wind current when you do that. You can kind of sort of push your way out of it, but it's so the wind current is so severe that when you try to push it out, by the time you get to where you want to go, you're still in that wind current and you're going the opposite direction you want to go. So it's just better to just disembark from anywhere, because it's just yeah, and there's no clear way for the tree to communicate which direction you're going to go in, because the tree stem will be facing like that way, but then you go on it and you're facing, and it's going to start going that way. It's not very obvious. I feel like that's something that needs to be tuned more, is to show the direction that the thing's going to take you in, instead of just going on it and hoping it takes you the way you want to go. Because I had instances where I used one, it just took me the opposite direction of where I was trying to go, and that was not helpful in any fashion. So there's that. The movement's great. A lot of movement options within the world, and there's one that can be mildly infuriating. Combat-wise, it's basically just Elden Ring, dumbed down slightly. It's just the same thing. Characters have unique abilities now, and they have their own passive ability as well. Wilder's choices were a sort of like a zip line sort of grapple that pulls you forward, like Monster Hunter Rise. And you could use it on enemies. I think the one thing I didn't know about this, that I didn't see in the thing, but it was cool. If you grapple on an enemy and launch towards them, you get fire grease on your weapon for a brief moment, which is nice. especially if the enemy you're fighting it has a fire affinity, fire weakness affinity. So that's cool, and I don't know if you can change it, but you do get Lost Grace at the end of every match. You get at some point if you do something. You get them all automatically, but the thing is, in the beta, there's nothing you could buy with them at all in the round table hold, so they were kind of pointless. So I don't know what their function really will be. I'm assuming they're gonna work like runes, where you can go to a store and maybe buy something to get a heads up or something like that, or permanent upgrades to yourself. Maybe possible. I'm not entirely sure how those work because there's no clear way of telling just yet. But I lost my whole damn point. Dang it. There's a lot of talk about this game. There's a lot because it's still fresh. There's still a lot going on. It's coming out soon, you know. It's $40, so it's not even a full price game technically. But yeah, there's no way of like knowing what those specific Lost Grace will do. You do earn them every match, at least if you play. Or I think if you disconnect or leave, you don't get any. So I guess that's also a punishment. You don't get any to help yourself later on. But I'm assuming it's going to work like a roguelike system where, you know, you earn these things throughout a play session. And when you die, you keep something to help you boost yourself from the very beginning. So you can get further and further and further, like a roguelike. Which I think that's something about this that I really enjoy, that it's not said very much at all, if at all, is it's also technically a roguelike because of the way it works. Yes, it's very heavily an easy, basic roguelike, like kind of like God of War Ragnarok, where it's the same map, just the item rewards you get are different, and the fights you might have are different. It's similar to that, except now the map is the same, the enemies are the same, but everything you get from things are random. Except for the obvious, like, flats and stuff. Those are always guaranteed. But, like, generally speaking, it is a light roguelike as well. And I think honestly, roguelike would fit a Souls game very well. Not in this particular landscape. I think if you made a traditional Souls game with a roguelike aspect to it, I think that would go off very well. Now, I haven't played anything outside of Elden Ring, so I don't know if that is an aspect of, like, Demon Souls or Bloodborne or Sekiro. I haven't played any of those. Elden Ring really is my first Souls game. It's not my first From Software game, okay? I played Armored Core 4 Answer back in the day when I was a child. I don't know why. So technically Armored Core as a series is my first From Software thing, and I played Armored Core 6, and it was my favorite game of that year when it came out. So I'm not technically new to the From Software era. I just was not new to the Souls era, sort of, or the kind of games. So I don't know if a roguelike system is in any of the previous Souls games. If it is, let me know, because I will surely go and play those, because that sounds awesome. But yeah, it's sort of a light roguelike as well, and I enjoy that aspect of it because it makes it more challenging for certain bosses with good rewards. I think generally at least from my experience, every boss I fought that had a reward at the end had something that was helpful. There was one moment in day 2 when I finished the final boss of the day, and there was like 3 different rewards that all were just like, I can't use this with my current setup, so what the hell do I grab? So I just grabbed something because it wasn't going to be helpful at all. It did. One of them I thought wasn't going to be helpful, and I was like, whatever, grab it. And it ended up being slightly helpful for the final boss, because the final boss is, at least in this beta, was fire-based. And I have a windstorm. I storm a windstorm when I sprint in a storm surge. And for some reason, I guess some areas of the actual arena count as that. So I was able to trick it off sometimes next to the enemy, and would do a decent amount of damage on them, regardless if I was attacking or not. So that was cool. I didn't think I'd actually need that until I ended up using it on accident, to be fair. But that's combat. I did exploration, the lack thereof for the most part. There's no story, at least for this beta test. I bet there's going to be some sort of like story significance of why bosses from... I think even with the descriptions for the games, I think they're already kind of alluding to what's going on with the world. Why is there bosses from other worlds or Dark Souls games coming in from seemingly nowhere? Because I mean, you probably saw some people's reactions, depending if you're Elden Ring or if you're a Souls guy or just a guy who played Elden Ring and want to see some reactions to trailers. You'll probably see that a lot of people were reacting with like the Nameless King showing up, and they're like, "What the hell is the Nameless King doing here? Are these games connected somehow? What's going on?" So I don't think they're trying to tell a multiverse story in any fashion. I think there might just be something going on where like bosses or like character or things from any other world in this section or whole thing is somehow leaking from other worlds or something. I don't think they're going to try to multiverse the world, because that just doesn't seem like something From Software would do, unless it's something they want to do. I don't think they're going to try to multiverse it. I think they're going to be like, these are echoes from other worlds that have bled into our world, but we cannot, there's going to be some sort of binding magic that allows us not to enter their world and us to not enter our world. It's just like some crack between the foreign nation or something. So that's how these characters are going to show up. Because obviously none of these characters appear in Elden Ring, which obviously this takes place, if we're going off, like, I mean, I don't know if it's obvious, but I feel like this is, like, some fashion, this is before the main events of Elden Ring, just like how Shadows of Earth here before the main events of Elden Ring and then Elden Ring. So I don't think there's going to be, like, a timeline thing to this, but if there is, I'm pretty sure that's the order this is going to go in. Yeah, so there's definitely the reason why there's none of these characters in Elden Ring. This is probably gonna be it. There's one maybe our characters are, because our characters are clearly not just random characters. They're a band of like some sort of band of characters that we never meet in Elden Ring, that clearly are getting together to fight whatever the hell's attacking the lands between. I think it's cool. I think the concept is really cool. If everything, it needs a lot of improvement. Not story-wise, this is out of the story section. The story is kind of just not there at all. I think the concept, the class system and everything is cool. I definitely think we need a lot more classes that fine-tune what they are. Because while there's clearly the attack-based combat, but he's also more like the, I don't know how to describe it, because he's not a bow character, really. But he's not a sword character either much. He's kind of the all-around build essentially, which is fine because I'm the basic guy who does all-around just in case. But there's definitely there needs to be more fine-tuned builds for like weapon-specific characters. Like it's nice the characters can wield other weapons, but it's clearly the Duchess will primarily use daggers and lances because those are the weapons she works best with. She's just not going to use a sword often. Just like Recluse is probably going to use mostly magic-based weapons because, again, swords and stuff don't work best with her. But you can use them, obviously, because there needs to be some sort of way to deal damage even without HP flask. And that's what I was going to get out earlier. Because of no HP flask, if you're playing Recluse and you don't grab a melee weapon and you can't attack at all to help your friends or to do the damage to that boss, you're just kind of pointless for a moment. Because you do gradually regenerate FP, at least Recluse does, but you can't gain HP outside of finding flowers in the world, which I would say in my first playthrough were very, very easy to find. For some reason later on it just became hard to find any sort of restore HP, restore stamina, restore or cure ailments and restore FP environmental items anywhere. I don't know why, I just had a hard time finding them. So I don't know, that was really weird for me. But I feel like it should be generally not that hard to find them, especially as you're playing Recluse. But she relies heavily on the FP, and there's no way of restoring it in any fashion in a boss fight except for waiting. He said there are items you can do it too, but there really should just be an FP flask. That's just the sum of it. At least for her build. So there should definitely be some of the character-specific things, like FP flask for Recluse, and maybe a different character that can only use magic-based items. I feel like there needs to be characters that can only use specific items, but they excel in those items very easily. Because it's nice that every character can use every item. I think it's best that we have characters, especially builds, that only use specific things, like how we would in Elden Ring. If you're playing a sword build, you just build yourself up so you use swords better. You know, if you're using a bow build, you build up your skills so you use bows better, and if you're using magic, you build up your faith like it's no tomorrow. yeah, you just like it's just that's the staple of Elden Ring, that's the staple of Souls games. I feel like that should sort of be a staple here, except in a character-based system. I'm sorry the camera fell. I tapped my table a little too hard, and it just got slipped. So, you know, well, high to my head only. But yeah, that's a staple of Elden Ring that just isn't really present here yet, right? Yet. This could very well change in the future. I hope it does, because it definitely needs to be there. I think that's most of it, actually. I don't think there's really anything much. I have no gameplay. I know there's one guy in the comments has been saying, where's the gameplay? I don't have any gameplay for this specifically because all gameplay recording was blocked. Not like it was, like I signed an NDA or anything. It's just you can't, because of the beta test and everything, they didn't allow for screen recording and broadcasting. So I tried to broadcast it for a brief moment. My Discord might have saw a notification for it or not. I broadcasted for all of like 30 seconds because then they told me immediately that it was just mic audio because they couldn't see the game because it was blocked. So I stopped broadcasting. I couldn't screen record. I couldn't take a screenshot. I took pictures. If you want proof, there'll be pictures at the end of this, I guess. That I played it. There's a picture. 2 pictures. And yeah, so they blocked all recording footage, at least from hardware sides. I don't have a capture card or anything, so I couldn't even, you know, negate that like streamers would. So yeah, I was actually kind of just out of luck this time around. So yeah, I actually have a reason for not putting gameplay this time. Sadly, I would have tried to, because I do like traditional reviews where it's the guy talking, then if gameplay pops up, and either the guy's on the side or he's not there at all. Then it comes back to him, and then goes back to gameplay, sort of yada yada. I would love to edit like that. And I generally, especially with my older videos, I would edit like that. But I don't have a computer anymore, and I don't have editing software anymore in that same fashion. Because for some reason, it is insanely difficult to put a video on top of another video in any mobile editing software. So that's why I put all the footage, especially with my Metro VR, Metro Awakening video. I put all at the end because it was just too much of a hassle to figure that out. So I just put it at the end. I'll do the same thing with the screenshots here. Just put them at the end. It'll be a couple seconds and then that's it. Just for proof that I played and that I actually participated. I'm not looking at this. It's just annoying. I slowly got lower and lower. I was like, you couldn't even see my mouth. So there'll be proof in the video. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If there's anything I didn't speak of, you'll probably find it better spoken out in a different video. I think generally speaking, I'm excited for it. I very much enjoyed it. When it worked really well, especially with teammates. When it didn't work, it was kind of a slog, boring kind of game, but for the most part it worked mostly. I wonder how the solo experience is going to work, and I did hear that they're considering adding 2 player play sessions instead of just solo and 3. So that's cool. I don't know how solo is going to work, especially with the bouncing. I'm assuming they're going to balance it differently, and hopefully, if you're playing solo, it's not going to be fully obviously, because it's an online game, it's probably still going to be a server-based thing, but hopefully, you know, in time, they find a way to make this not server-based. So anybody who wants to play can play whenever. Because I do think that there's the one thing I definitely think is, because they have a password system, so you can match up with your friends specifically. I definitely think there needs to be something along the lines of like an offline mode with solo at least, or having match-based after, you know, obviously because at some point the servers are going to end. At some point when the servers end, they make it so it's local multiplayer based, except maybe they add all those other back-end systems into the base game itself so it can tell all those things, like the randomness and stuff, and then make it so that only the password system works, which is unfortunate, but at least it's some way to play it. But you can play with your friends in that way, so you can keep playing the game over and over after the servers are end. But I don't think the servers will end for this game anytime soon, because Souls games are hella popular, everybody plays them, and there's going to be a giant group of people who either casual or professional or you know, Souls enthusiasts. They're gonna be playing this game for a while too. I don't think this game lacks. it lacked a lot of things from Elden Ring, but it doesn't lack the quality and fun that Elden Ring has too. It's just in a different fashion or form. So generally, I would say, at least for this test, because obviously it's a test, it's more like a beta, really, but technically it's a beta test, but it's a network test. So you can't, there's gonna be things that go wrong. You can't expect to get any, answers on it or anything. You just gotta know that something, is going on. But overall, just from what I've played, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the full release. I don't think I'll be picking up immediately, just because I never picked up Elden Ring immediately. I think I picked it up like a week or two later. But to be fair, I was committed to Elden Ring. Here, I'm committed, but I also don't buy online all that often, so outside of solo play, it really doesn't help me much. So, if I do get online, then you'll definitely see me playing Elden Ring Nightreign a bit. So within that scenario, I think I probably will pick it up later, and then maybe I'll get online and play there too. But with that being said, I would say just for this test and like as a first time, seeing, this is a really good game. I'm really excited for it. I feel there's a lot of people going around being like, it's not Elden Ring, so it's bad. A lot of people just going around saying it's not Elden Ring, so it's good. A lot of people saying that this just wasn't their kind of solo game. That's totally fine. I personally enjoyed it really very much, and I'm excited for it to come. I'm gonna get Elden Ring. Get the base game back, and we try to beat that before Nightreign, although that's likely not going to happen. At least not before I play Nightreign myself fully, not when it comes out. But I also got to play Shadows of the Erdtree as well. There's a lot, but generally, yes, I think it was a very good game. I had a very good time, and I'm excited for more, and the DLC they're going to release with it, and all the other bosses that are coming with it in the beginning. And potentially whatever story they're gonna tell with other bosses and other worlds coming. There's a lot of potential with this. I think, especially because this was a very bare bones idea. I think there's gonna be more complex things happening later on, or certain things. I don't think what we got to play was all of what they had to offer when it came to variety. I think there's gonna be a lot more variety, especially because obviously it goes without saying that when you play certain levels, it's not gonna be the same map every single time. It will be the same map. It won't be this map that we played. It will be a different map. Say like this one is obviously kind of Limgrave inspired. Maybe there'll be one on Caden or other worlds of Limgrave or the lands between. I don't remember all of them because I only visited the first 4 or 3 of them. But they're like Cleveland. People know that reference. There'll be maps that are based off those areas as well. They'll be just as hard as those areas from Elden Ring, possibly. So it's not just gonna be the same map over and over again with different bosses at the end. I hope that someday some bosses have longer days or more days, so that it's a little more preparing. Because I also want bosses just to get harder as you go, not just you deal more damage in general. Or you have more levels. I want them to be more days, they get harder, and you have to get more stuff, and the world around you gets harder as well. That feels like a good balance. But yeah, there's a lot of potential with this, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that was the Elden Ring network test beta, whatever. I know it's the network test, but it also was sort of a beta for a lot of people. I enjoyed it. It had its issues, but it also worked very well sometimes, and I'm excited for more. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video, and check out my proof in a couple seconds. Peace out.